version 2 and Pikachu VMAX.
I don't know. I've got.
What can you do for that?
Got Whirlipede. I've got
I don't know, man. These
Snowrun
are pretty rare.
and
Like,
Dark
you seeing
World.
that art? What are you gonna give me for that? We're going up in value quite a bit. All right, fine. Let's do it. Oh, nice! I'm so excited. Been wanting this card forever.
Pokemon isn't just a nostalgic kids game. It's an explosive investment market. Over the last 10 years, Pokemon has skyrocketed in value. To packs being worth just a couple dollars back in 1996, to rare Charizard selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars now, Pokemon has come a long way. But what's helped Pokemon become such a great investment over the last couple years? And how does it compare to things like crypto, stocks, and even real estate? And most importantly, is the price gonna keep going up, or is this just a bubble waiting to burst? Well, we're gonna cover the rest of that in the video, so stay tuned. So first, let's break down Pokemon's financial history, what's making it keep going up, and what you need to know before investing. So, if we're gonna look at the history of Pokemon, we gotta go back to where it first started, 1996 in Japan. After just 4 years in 1999, Pokemon had spread across the globe. Back then, packs were pretty cheap, around $3 to $4 American dollars each. Back then, nobody thought of it as an investment. We were just ripping packs to enjoy them and open. Kids were tearing them up or trading them at lunch for different snacks. Nobody ever really thought of these cardboard pieces as value. And as time went on, with the release of TV shows, video games, and more, Pokemon as a brand grew like crazy. But what was making these packs go up in value? Well, it's scarcity. These older packs only had a limited release, and with the game being smaller back then, only a certain amount of them were bought and produced. This is what causes the older collections to skyrocket in value, as they're so much more scarce than these newer cards which are mass-produced. Not only were they on limited production, but some of them didn't even make it off the shelves and were never purchased. That's why we still have some sealed packs that are sitting on eBay for enormous amounts of money. Not only that, but the packs that were opened, most kids weren't keeping these cards in pristine condition, double sleeving them up or putting them in a hard sleeve. They're getting thrown in their backpack, shoved in their pocket, hidden under their bed. Who knows, but these cards were getting destroyed right, left, and center. So that was making the mint condition cards much more scarce, therefore increasing their value. Now you're probably sitting there kicking yourself thinking about all the old Pokemon cards you used to have that just disappeared or you destroyed throughout the years. I know, we all did it, it sucks. But how are you supposed to know at 10 years old that these cards were gonna be worth thousands of dollars? And hey, if we all kept them, they wouldn't be worth anything, so somebody's gotta make some money. Now fast forward to 2010. Collectors were starting to realize that these old cards held some value, specifically the old holographic Charizards. In 2010, the first PSA 10 Charizard sold for $2,000. That's quite a bit of money, right? Well, in 2016, the next PSA 10 Charizard sold for $10,000. And during the COVID boom of 2020, they were selling for $300,000 to $400,000 each. And fast forward just one more year later, Logan Paul bought a PSA 10
Illustrator Pikachu.
$5.2 million. So what caused this insane surge from 2010 to 2021? Well, let me tell you. First of all, nostalgia-driven hype. All the adults who grew up playing Pokemon or collecting the cards, they now have real jobs with real money to collect with. So since Pokemon never stopped creating since 1996, there's so many new additions, games, etc. for people to collect and put their money into. This is a trend that we've seen across many hobbies like comic books, sneakers, vintage video games, etc. As the people who grew up with those things now have real money, they're looking to buy back a piece of their childhood. And sometimes that's, worth whatever somebody's willing to pay. And if people are willing to pay more consistently, that's just gonna drive the price right up. So now nostalgia-driven demand isn't enough alone to drive these prices up like that. Let's not forget about all that influencer hype and the celebrities who are joining the Pokemon scene all of a sudden. Celebrities and influencers have played a massive part in boosting the investment scene for a long time. Whatever they've got a decent chunk of, they want it to go up. And the only way to do that is to preach it to their audience. These guys are people with money too, and they've got investments. So when they're telling you to invest in something, it's usually because they own a decent chunk of it and they want it to go up. So during the pandemic boom of Pokemon, lots of influencers jumped on the bandwagon and stockpiled Pokemon cards, preaching it to their audience. While this may not have been one large coordinated effort by all these celebrities, this did have a huge impact on the price as a whole. On top of this, for years before that, big whales have been pumping huge money into TCGs, realizing the collectible value, purchasing mass amounts of rare cards off the market, continually driving the price up. Every time we see a new headline with these large numbers and influencers purchasing mass amounts of cards, this sets a new precedent for the set, raising the benchmark for the prices as a whole. And as new sets release and they're selling out like that, and it's getting posted all over the internet, that drives FOMO, with more people rushing to buy the set every time, therefore increasing the time it sells out in and increasing the price. Number 3, like I covered before, scarcity and grading. So not every Pokemon card is worth money. There's some cards that just, you can kind of throw away and not care about. But some cards, if you did that, you would be losing your mind. Now, obviously, a card graded PSA 10 over PSA 1 is going to be worth more money. But it also depends on the rarity of that card. Some cards like this holographic Charizard are worth so much money because there just aren't that many PSA 10s out there. To give you a better idea about how this PSA scale works, a PSA 10 Charizard could be worth $400,000 or even more, while a PSA 9 could only be worth $50,000. The grading makes a big difference. So in short, the older the card is and the better the grade, the more valuable it becomes. And number 4, Pokemon becoming an alternative asset class. With the rise of all assets, this brings in new investors and hedge funds even from all across the globe. Pokemon being no different. As the value of Pokemon as a whole rose, more investors flock to it, buying up cards hoping to get in on the action. Not only does this continually drive the price of Pokemon cards up, but it helps keep the current valuation of the market where it is. If that much liquidity has been invested and pumped into the market, that keeps things at an all-time high. But say these hedge funds and large investors were to do a mass sell, that would leave everybody else investing on the market side down pretty bad. Don't forget, there's always whales and hedge funds who own way more than you. You're a small fish in the sea, hate to get swallowed up by a whale. But with more investors, whales, and hedge funds joining the Pokemon market, gives them some padding to fall back on. So if one big whale sells, hopefully there's about 100 more to back that up. Don't forget, you always need liquidity in the market if you want to make money. How are you going to sell if there's no liquidity? So with all this demand for Pokemon cards, how does it compare to other assets? Well, let's break it down. Pokemon versus the stock market first. Instead of looking at all the stocks individually or looking at a bunch of different ones, we're going to look at the S&P 500. The S&P 500 has historically returned 8 to 10% yearly. Meanwhile, many vintage Pokemon cards have far outperformed that. It's hard to calculate an average across all Pokemon, as some cards don't go up in value whatsoever and some go up exponentially, but we've seen 10x, 20x, 200x on some of these Pokemon cards. Even on newer sets, not only vintage. But it's pretty safe to say, if you know what you're investing in Pokemon, these returns far exceed the S&P 500 or any other stock, other than maybe GameStop. However, you can't forget Pokemon is a niche market, and it doesn't have the exact same liquidity as stocks. You can't just sell like that. To sell your Pokemon cards, you need to list them on a secondary website, such as eBay, Facebook Marketplace, etc. From there, you're also going to have to pay the site, shipping, etc. So it's safe to say the transfer of liquidity from Pokemon cards to cash and stocks to cash, stocks win. Now let's cover crypto. Bitcoin has seen some explosive pumps, but also some crazy dumps as well. And some of these altcoins have gone up bigger numbers than I can even count. And then also gone down a couple 100%. Pokemon, while still technically volatile, hasn't had the same collapse as crypto has seen. The risk factor on most Pokemon investments is much lower than crypto. While you're still seeing some of the same returns from cards and coins, the risk factor associated with those coins doesn't exactly equate to what you're making. And with Pokemon cards versus coins, the physical assets most often hold long-term value much better than digital assets. As we are converting to a digital world, we'll see how that changes in the future, but Pokemon cards do have an advantage there. Now a bit of an odd one, Pokemon versus real estate. So what would have happened if you bought a couple $100,000 worth of Pokemon instead of a house? Real estate is considered one of the safest long-term investments. Often not only do the properties hold their value amazingly, but they go up over time pretty steadily. However, Pokemon cards have also gone up at a pretty steady rate and hold their value very well. So how do they square up to each other? Well, one large comparison is real estate can provide passive income through things like renting or using your property as a form of business, etc. Pokemon cards, not so much. There are services out there where you can rent out your Pokemon cards to some avid collectors, but I'm not going to cover that because it's not really, I don't know anybody who's making money like that. But hey, if you're renting out your Pokemon cards making some pretty crazy bank, let me know because I want to know about that. Another large difference is the barrier to entry. You can buy a Pokemon card for $5 and have it be worth $500. You're not going to get a house for $5, but the house is going to sell for much more. You can get houses for $200,000, work on it, and then maybe sell it for $1 million, making that same level of profit. But the work that went into buying the Pokemon card and then flipping it, significantly less than it would be in a house. So if we're basing it on short-term gains, then Pokemon cards win because there's much lower barrier to entry and a much higher possibility for profit. But if we're looking at safe investments, then real estate wins in this one. So now that we've covered all forms of investing and compared them to Pokemon cards, should you invest in Pokemon cards? Well, let me tell you, Pokemon has proven itself to be a very valuable investment, but there are still risks. The demand could drop at any time. Pokemon could just no longer be fun, or a new TCG could come out and take that over. I'm not going to pretend like that's high probability by any means with the established brand of Pokemon and all the fans worldwide, but that is a possibility. So now this is something that's actually already started to happen, but we have seen Pokemon correct. The overproduction of newer sets. So with some of these sets being mass produced, this plummets the value and affects the value of other collections. And reprints of other cards from past sets can detrimentally affect the value. But we've seen Pokemon respond to collectors and see that they don't love mass production, and they've started to tone that back on certain sets, where they just have some mass-produced sets and some exclusive collector sets. Keeps the market happy. But that can happen at any time. Overproduction will kill the market. Now don't forget, not all Pokemon cards are a good investment. Research is key. It's not just like buying gold. It's not all gold. Some of it's poop. So now if you are planning to invest, this is not financial advice by any means. But let me give you a couple quick tips that are going to help you out. Stick to vintage cards. Anything in between 1999 to 2002 is usually pretty safe. Only buy graded. Unless you have an amazing eye and you can tell whether it's a PSA 9 or PSA 10, don't risk it. Just buy graded. Hold long term. Unless you pulled a pack from a new set and you're looking to sell it for some quick profit, hold those cards for a while. I'm not talking months. I'm saying even decades. We've seen the price go up exponentially over the last 10 years. Just think about the next 10 years. You're not buying it now to make profit in 3 months. That's not how this game works. You're buying it to hopefully make money in a couple years. And you might not make money at all. Don't forget that. So a lot of us have watched Pokemon grow from just a little game to a multi-billion-dollar investment scene. And it's pretty crazy. I remember trading Pokemon on the playground, and I never would have thought that those cards would have been worth what they are now. Do you guys still think the prices are going to keep going up, or are you worried the bubble's going to crash soon? I really don't know what to think some days. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. Hope you guys liked this video today. Going to be doing more financial analysis of some random hobbies in the future. If you guys have a hobby or something that you want me to cover, make sure you leave it down in the comments below so I can do some research. Thanks for watching, guys.